The success of Sparta depended on a tightly controlled society. Over a 100-year period during the 7th century BC, Sparta invented and perfected the world's first system of social engineering. Control by the state began at birth. Inferior children were killed. Superior children were indoctrinated, trained, and molded into the kind of fighting force that could control the helots, the enslaved people of Messenia.
Once you have a small population that must enslave a large population, then each Spartan, in the Spartan view, must be qualitatively superior to every 10 or 12 Messenians. The only way they felt they could achieve that level of military excellence was to bring all of the youths in a group, give them standardized training, and do it from a very early age.
When they were 7 years old, Spartan boys were taken away from home to be cared for and trained by the state. They lived in a kind of military academy called the Agoge.
At age 7, the young Spartan boy enters the world of males that really will be his life for the rest of his time, for as long as he survives. Initially, he is brought into what I have sometimes called the Cub Scout troop from hell.
The Agoge is 15 years long pep rally. The Spartans are being prepared to go into battle. And here an alleged saying of Patton comes to mind. Patton is supposed to have said to his men, "I don't want you to kill for me, I want you to die for me." And that's the thing about the Spartans. They are ready to die.
For a Spartan boy's first 5 years in the Agoge, from age 7 to age 12, a government trainer-in-chief called a paidonomos instructed him in basic literacy and physical education. Discipline and punishment, however, were often meted out by slightly older boys.
The way to think about it is as if the toughest kids from your junior high school were put in charge of you when you just entered first grade. It is, I think, a system that, in a sense, uses the potential cruelty of children towards one another in order to try to teach this Spartan kid, from the very earliest age, that he has to absolutely obey every order that he is given from anyone who is a superior. It is a terrifying sort of vision.
The main lesson in the Agoge from day one was to toughen the boys for the hard life that lay ahead of them.
The Spartan training system was clearly meant to test for weakness and to cull out weakness. And throughout his life, a Spartan warrior had to worry about being watched by his fellow Spartans. They were constantly watching him for weakness, watching to see if he is really up to speed.
Again and again, the rule in the Agoge is, can you take it? How tough are you? Are you tough enough to be a Spartan male? This is a tough love system, and is more tough than love.
Spartan girls also received training, but at home.
She was trained from childhood to be tough, to be physically fit at any rate, to be presumably to some extent self-reliant.
Because their raison d'etre was to produce strong sons to defend the community, they ate well, they participated in athletics, so they were, in a way, prime breeding specimens.
At age 12, Spartan boys entered the second level of Agoge training, and conditions got much worse. Each boy was issued a single cloth cloak. This was the only garment they were allowed to wear year-round. They were also required to go barefoot, all in the name of toughening them physically and mentally.
Anybody who's been to Laconia in the winter can see that the very idea that you would go barefooted or you'd have a single cloak would kill a modern American within minutes.
Tired and cold, the boys were also hungry.
The evening meals were cooked, if that's the right word, by the helot attendants. And they cooked absolutely horrendous food, apparently. And the most famous meal of the Spartans is what's called the blood soup. It's basically pork with a lot of blood floating around.
Travelers to Sparta were appalled at the Spartan diet. One famous description was recorded by a visiting Sybarite from the north.
And he came to Sparta and he said, after sampling this soup, he now understood why the Spartans were so willing to die.
The soup was not only bad, there wasn't enough of it.
You get enough food to survive, but you don't get enough food to be happy. And so you're taught right away that if you want to get enough food to be happy, to feel full, you're going to have to steal it.
That was done in part to keep them sharp, but also in part to teach them survival skills, because it was all part of the business of making a Spartan, who would be the kind of guy who could manage to forage around the country and keep himself alive if he had to.
A Spartan child who is caught stealing will be punished, and yet a Spartan child who does not steal will be regarded as a complete wimp. If you are very good at cheating and you don't get caught, then you in fact will flourish.
The length one boy went to so as not to get caught was recorded by Plutarch. According to his account, a very hungry young boy stole a fox cub to eat. When a superior suspected he had stolen the fox, the boy hid the vicious little animal under his cloak. Rather than be found out, the boy let the trapped animal bite away at his flesh until he died.
This was taken throughout antiquity as an example of Spartan toughness. You know, that boy had been taught to be so unflinching, to deal with pain, to be respectful to his superiors. On the other hand, he was being eaten alive from the inside.
Toughening and strengthening Spartan adolescents was deemed necessary because of the kinds of battles they would one day fight.
The phalanx is as strong as the weakest link. So the crucial element is to make sure that everyone is more or less equally strong, and that those who are weaker are simply eliminated.
It was said of the Spartans that they were the only nation that when they went to war, things actually got easier for them.
Life in the agoge was a weeding out process. Boys were continually required to pass tests of strength, flexibility, endurance, and cunning. Failure was severely punished. At the annual festival at the temple of Artemis Orthia, Spartans would gather to watch a test that might be called the grab for the cheese.
The young men of Sparta divide into two groups. One group tries to steal the cheese that is piled up on the altar, and another group, armed with whips, try to prevent them from doing so. In that kind of melee, there are going to be occasions when people die.
Much of what young Spartan males were put through seems like a forecast of the most ominous aspects of modern fraternity hazings. And indeed, there were many Spartan boys who, when the tests were over, had not passed and had died.
It's a constant competition whereby everybody is being judged, graded in effect, and then there are winners who are given various advantages, various honors. So here's your Spartan. He is trained both to be like everybody else and to subordinate everything to the commonality and to be superior to everybody else.